The Pittsburgh Steelers versus Las Vegas Raiders. This is who's in, who's out, and everything you need to know about this game. So, the 3-2 Pittsburgh Steelers headed over to face the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 2-3, at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. This game will take place at Allegiant Stadium, where the Raiders will be at home, and the Steelers will be away. So, before I get into it more, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers are dealing with a lot of injuries. They have 10 players on IR in total. They have 4 players already ruled out for this game, and 3 more were ruled doubtful earlier in the week. So let's get an updated look at the injury report for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and also look at the Raiders, who they are starting a new quarterback. They are bringing in a new quarterback in which they started last season, benching Gardner Minshew, and also they have some injuries as well. So let's take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers injury report first for this game. Let's start off with safety Davante KZ. He's been dealing with an ankle injury ever since last week, and he has been ruled out for this week's game. Also, running back Jalen Warren, who has a knee injury, a PCL sprain. He was ruled doubtful on Tuesday by Mike Tomlin, but he feels really well, and now he was taken off the injury report just today, and he has been upgraded, and he will be playing in this week's game. Also, looking at linebacker edge rusher Nick Herbig, who came out of last week's game with a hamstring injury. He was ruled doubtful as well on Tuesday, and he's out for this week's game. You look at Alex Highsmith, who's been dealing with a groin injury for the last few weeks now. He was ruled out. Tight end McCole Pruitt with a knee injury as well. He is out for this week's game. You look at running back and kick returner Cordell Patterson. He's been dealing with an ankle injury for a few weeks now, and he's out for this week's game as well. Defensive end DeMarvin Leal with a neck injury has been ruled out. So, those are all the players for the Pittsburgh Steelers who have game destinations. But there's also some other players that have been dealing with some injuries in practice, but they will be playing. For example, Russell Wilson with a calf injury. He was a full participant, and he will be a backup to Justin Fields. And in this video title, you see Russell Wilson. Is he starting? No. He will be the backup, even though he is healthy now, and he should be active on game day. He will not be the third emergency inactive quarterback. He will be backing up Justin Fields. So there's no confusion in that regard. You also look at tight end Pat Freiermuth. He's been dealing with a calf injury in practice, and we all know calf injuries are serious ones. He will be playing in this week's game. So those are the players that have been dealing with injuries. And now looking over at the Las Vegas Raiders and their injuries, they have a lot of injuries as well, and a lot of people with game destinations. For example, wide receiver Davante Adams. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury for a few weeks now. He's also been on the trade block, and he's been ruled out for this week's game. You look at linebacker Tommy Eichenberg with a hamstring injury for the Raiders. He is questionable for Sunday. Also, tight end Nicole Mayer. He's been dealing with some personal reasons in practice, so he's been missing practice, and he's out for this week's game due to personal reasons. Wide receiver Jacoby Myers with an ankle injury, listed as questionable for the game. Thayer Munford Jr., tackle with a knee injury and ankle injury, questionable for this week's game. Guard Jackson Powers Johnson with a knee injury is also questionable. Running back Jameer White with a groin injury is questionable. And safety Trey Taylor with a knee injury is questionable. So there's still a lot of players who's going to come right up to game day if they're going to be playing or not. But those are the game statuses for the players for the Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. All those injuries listed by the Steelers and the Raiders, those don't include the players on the IR. The Pittsburgh Steelers have 10 players on injury reserve right now, but they've been on injury reserve for a minute now. So I'm not really going to get into that, but there are some key players on their offensive line and other areas that are on IR for both teams. So there's a long injury list, and like I said, let's get into this game. No more talking about injuries, let's talk about the play on the field and some things we're going to keep an eye on. So Justin Fields will be starting once again. But the Raiders, they're making a change at quarterback. They're no longer starting Gardner Minshew. He's being benched in favor of O'Connell. The Las Vegas Raiders offense has been really struggling and they're looking for a spark. They brought in Gardner Minshew this offseason, who had a really good tenure with the Colts last year, but it just hasn't worked out this far, and the Raiders are starting off slow, so they're trying to look for a spark, and they're starting Aiden O'Connell this week against the Steelers. So it's going to be interesting to see his first game action of the season, even though he started for most of the season last year for the Raiders, so he's used to their system. So they're looking for a spark, and he's supposed to be their spark. But the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, as we all know, they're a really good defense in terms of when they face bad teams, they really don't allow the bad teams to do good. They really struggle more against the good teams and the high-flying offenses, but against the bad teams, they usually do their job and hold their own and cause havoc. For example, TJ Watt coming off the outside, defensive end Cameron Hayward wrecking the middle, along with Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton. They don't have Nick Herbig and Alex Highsmith in this week's game, so it's going to be more attention on those guys, but the Steelers' defense should still be able to hold their own against the Raiders, even though all the injuries they are dealing with. In the secondary, they're losing some guys, but they still have most of the guys in terms of not being injured. I know they're losing DeMonte Casey this week in the secondary as well, so hopefully the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to step up and play better in the secondary. They're really main portion of their team is the front seven and the front guys, so hopefully the defensive backs are able to hold their own, and they should be, because Davante Adams is not playing, so they don't really have to worry about a high-end type of playmaker on the outside, and they could keep focus on the tight end and Jacoby Myers. So you look at this team for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is a game they should win. This is a team that Raiders aren't really good on defense, so the Pittsburgh Steelers offense should get going. If there's ever a game where the Steelers offense is to break out, this is the game where they need to break out and they need to do better in terms of passing offense and running offense. The Pittsburgh Steelers have started slow in basically every single game this offseason and then always pick it up towards the end. So if there ever is a game to start fast right out the gate, this is the game for it. And Justin Fields needs to prove that he is the quarterback one for the Pittsburgh Steelers all throughout the season, because Russell Wilson's getting healthy now. And if the Steelers continue to struggle on offense, Mike Tomlin won't hesitate to make a change at the quarterback spot. So hopefully this offense is able to prove that Justin Fields is the starter moving forward. Also, moving over to Las Vegas Raiders side of the football, what do they have to do to win this game? I believe they have to play a perfect game on offense, because this offense for the Raiders isn't a team that can make mistakes and recover from it. So Aiden O'Connell has to protect the football in order for the Raiders to win this game. And also the defense has to step up and contain the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive running game, not really their passing game, because their passing game hasn't been really good this season. If they could just continue to do what other teams been doing with the Steelers passing game, they should be fine, and just contain the Steelers running game, even though the running backs are injured or coming off of injury or coming back from injury. So that's what the Raiders need to do. The Pittsburgh Steelers just need to play Pittsburgh Steelers football and do what they did the first 3 weeks. It seems like it's always the same type of game for the Steelers, a low-scoring game, and then they win it in the last possession or by one possession. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they already know that these games are gritty, and even though it's the Raiders, the Pittsburgh Steelers have struggled against the Raiders in the past. It seems like every single time we face the Raiders, it's always against a bad team in the Raiders, in which they have, and we should win this game. But then the Raiders come in, or they come and defend their home stadium and end up winning the game. So keep an eye on the Raiders. This is always a gritty matchup between the two. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, they head over to the Las Vegas Raiders in this week's game. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on who's going to win this matchup and what do the Steelers need to do to win this game. Do you believe the Raiders will win? Do you believe the Steelers will win? I have a poll going on right now or in a few minutes about this game of who's going to win. So make sure you go vote on if you believe the Steelers or the Raiders will win this game. Me personally, I think the Steelers will win this game. I believe they'll bounce back after the 2-game losing streak. They'll snap it. This offense will finally get going at least a little bit, and the defense holds their own as they've been doing for most of the season. I believe this is not the game in which Justin Fields plays poorly enough for him to get benched in favor of Russell Wilson in next week's game. So you will see Justin Fields for at least one more week in my perspective. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, highlights, updates, analysis, reports, everything like that. I cover everything Steelers. This is the best spot for it. So like, comment, and subscribe, turn on notifications. And until next time, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.